Across the world, in a place called the Serengeti, there is a phenomenon known as the Great Migration. It's the largest movement of any herding species on Earth, as 1.2 million wildebeest and 300,000 zebra travel in an ever-moving clockwise circuit, according to the rainy seasons and the dry seasons, trying to kind of follow where there's water and where there's grass. The lines of wildebeest are so dense and so long on this journey that they've even been seen from space. It's one of the wildest spectacles on Earth, with literally millions of animals traveling thousands of kilometers along well-worn migration routes in search of fresh grasses and plentiful water sources. And if the long distances weren't staggering enough, these creatures also make this trek through some of the most predator-filled environments on the planet, facing lions and leopards and cheetahs and hyena and wild dogs and rivers filled with crocodiles. Because in the same way that the wildebeest parents teach their young to follow the same paths year after year, the lioness teach their cubs where you can go to find a whole bunch of wildebeest at this time of year. So why do they do it? Why do they make this kind of jaw-dropping journey despite the fact that thousands of them are going to die along the way every single year? It's because their survival depends on it. Thousands of them will die, but thousands of more are going to be born along the way, replenishing the herd. And the wildebeest know that as big a threat as lions and crocodiles might be, they pale in comparison to the threat of drought. They might lose some of their number along the way to various forms of predation as they're crossing rivers, but they could lose their entire herd to a lack of rain if they just stayed in one place. And so in this kind of never-ending instinctual quest for stability, they accomplish one of the most impressive feats in the natural world, only having kind of just completed this great migration before they begin it all over again the next year. But isn't that kind of instinct for survival and for stability and for security kind of hardwired into all of us? Don't you feel a longing for security and stability? I mean, we might also enjoy things like excitement and adventure, but at the end of the day, don't we crave stability? Something solid to sink our feet into? Maybe you don't participate in an annual circumnavigation of the Serengeti, but I would hazard a guess that your desire for stability is probably one of the things that gets you out of bed each morning and out the door to work. I'd imagine that there are probably days when you would prefer to just stay at home and not go in, but it's probably at least in part your need for a paycheck that drives you there. Right? Like we talk about kind of needing stable income. We want stable income because we want stable lives. We want to be able to pay the bills and pay the groceries because just like the wildebeest and the antelope, we want to be able to count on the fact that there's food to eat and shelter from the elements and the predators. I think I could probably also guess that you want stability in more areas than just food and water and a roof over your head. You probably value things like mental and emotional stability. You probably want stability in your family. So you think about your children growing up. So you think about relationships in your house. Maybe even one of the reasons that you want stability in your job or stability in your finances is because of the impact that they have on those bigger areas like your peace of mind and your family. And I also don't think that I would be wrong if I guessed that those thoughts keep you up at night on occasion. That work and bills and savings and retirement and health and the kind of potential instability and change that can threaten them, that some of those things might be a catalyst for some of the anxiety that you feel at a given week. I hope that you can find some encouragement and some refreshment in Psalm 125. Because I think the psalmist has some very reassuring things to remind us of. Those who trust in the Lord are like Mount Zion. It cannot be shaken. It remains forever. The mountains surround Jerusalem, and the Lord surrounds his people, both now and forever. That's a comforting thought. Now, this isn't the first time that mountains have been mentioned in the Songs of Ascent. We've looked at them before. But if you remember, the first time that we saw them in Psalm 121, the pilgrim kind of looked at the mountains and he was struck by his need for help, kind of contemplating the potential robbers, or maybe the kind of dreading the pagan high places in the hills that he was drawing near to. But this time, when the pilgrim turns his eyes to the mountains, rather than making him fearful, they remind him of God's constancy. He sees the mountains kind of standing there immovable, and he remembers the greater immovability and constancy of his God. I think this is actually probably kind of a helpful Bible reading 101 kind of side observation to make here, which is that the same object can be used all throughout the scriptures to make comparisons, to make kind of different points about different things. In one psalm, the mountains might mean danger, and in another, the mountains might mean safety. In one place, the righteous is compared to a tree because he has deep roots and he's kind of by streams of water. And in another, unfaithful Israel is compared to a tree because the axe is already at the root, right? Ready to chop it down. And we use comparisons like that too, right? If I was describing Sterling to you and I told you that he was strong as an ox, he would probably kind of smile and feel good about himself. If I was describing Sterling to you and I told you he was dumb as an ox, he would probably not feel super great about himself, right? Both comparisons to oxes, but very different things about oxes, right? Or oxen, right? Oxen? Yeah. Ox is not even a word. Boxen. But it's important when you're reading to not just kind of get locked in on one attribute and kind of one idea because I've heard that thing used before, and just kind of immediately assume that all of those characteristics are being implied here. Stones, trees, flowers, seeds, these are all things that the Bible uses, and they're used in different ways, right? Jesus is compared to a lion, the lion of the tribe of Judah. Satan's also compared to a lion, kind of looking around, prowling around, looking for something to devour. That does not mean that Jesus and Satan have anything in common. So this is just kind of a helpful point to us to say, hey, we want to be careful to see how the author is using his analogy here. And here, he's using this analogy of mountains, particularly the mountains that surround Jerusalem, to remember the constancy with which the Lord surrounds his people. Just like they stand permanently rooted and have so since time immemorial. For as long as we can remember, they're unshaken and unmoved. So too does God stand beside his people now and forever. But notice that it's not only the Lord who's compared to the mountains, but it's also his people. Those who trust in the Lord are like Mount Zion. Oh, in what way are they like Mount Zion? It cannot be shaken. It remains forever. The logical inference here is that those who trust in the Lord cannot be shaken. Isn't that amazing? Wouldn't you want that to be said of you? They cannot be shaken. That seems like something worth aspiring to. This psalm would tell you that if you want that, the path to get there is trust in the Lord. Now maybe that's not news to you, Maybe you've heard that before. Maybe you came in here like feeling like you believe that. Maybe you came in and you're not yet convinced that the Bible's true, and you're like, okay, yeah, sure. I kind of figured you'd say something like that. Trust in the Lord provides stability. But I actually want you to stop for a moment and kind of think about all of the other things that we could possibly look to. I want you to stop for a moment and think about all of the other things you do look to for stability and for security. And then I want you to see how feeble and precarious each of those things is. Maybe it's your work. It's good to work hard. Maybe you're doing just that. You're grinding at the job. You're putting in overtime hours. You're going above and beyond for clients. Maybe right now you're in the stage of kind of building the business. One day the business is going to run itself. It's going to provide long-term security, stable retirement. But right now you just have to put in the sweat equity so that you can enjoy the fruits of it later. And everywhere, financial planners would review your case and rejoice and applaud and say, please look at this person. This is a model of what to do. This is wisdom and prudence and careful, stable investment looks like. You're a model of industry. But have you ever stopped to consider that you are one stock market crash away from that all being for naught? Maybe that's actually the reason that you don't stop and consider more often, is because you know that if you did, you'd have to consider that. And you just can't consider that. It would only slow you down. So you just kind of redouble your efforts and hope the kind of pace that you keeps anxiety at bay a little bit longer and doesn't force you to face life's precariousness. But you need to know that the thing that you perceive as stability is a farce. One bad investment, one shift in the market, one new development in the industry, and all of that security can go right out the window before you have time to blink. Jesus told a story about this, a guy whose business was highly productive, so much so that he tore his barns down and built new ones, bigger ones. And the Lord said, "You're a fool. This very night, your life is going to be demanded of you." Oh, well, maybe that's it. Maybe it's life, right? Obviously, stability and security aren't found in wealth or finances or business. You think it's life. It's in health. It's in vitality. So instead of working the overnight hours and burning the midnight oil, you prioritize your health. You work out, you eat right, you get all the recommended hours of sleep every night, and you're doing a great job. You pass your health screenings and your checkups at the doctor's office, which you never miss, by the way. You pass them with flying colors. Really, your doctor couldn't be happier. He's pointing at you saying, "See, this is the example of what it looks like to take care of yourself." And you're one diagnosis away from all of that being in vain. No, but not you. You've eaten egg white and spinach for breakfast every morning. You've had a kale smoothie for lunch every day. For the last 15 years, there's no way that health is going to be what brings you down. You have a Peloton. Okay, all right. Maybe you can prevent this. Maybe you can kind of make sure to not get cancer. What causes it? Don't know. Okay, well, what can I do to make sure that I don't get it? Don't know. Probably nothing. But look at how well I've taken care of myself. Hey, that is great. Those are good things. Keep doing them. But they guarantee nothing. Yesterday was a day full of sports, right? In addition to the World Series, the NHL has started. There's a full slate of college football games going on. Regular season is in full swing for European soccer, and playoffs are going on for North American soccer. And in every single one of those stadiums around the world, kind of cheering on every single one of those players are players' parents. And every single one of those parents would probably tell stories about things they gave up, all the things they sacrificed to make their dreams come true, how they switched jobs and they took out second mortgages and they banked on everything to see their kid make it to the big leagues, right? On Tuesday night, Elizabeth's going to be sad that Autumn is gone because they're not going to get to watch Dancing with the Stars together. But do you know who is going to be watching? A bunch of dance moms and a bunch of dance dads who are realigning their family calendars in hopes that one day their baby girl might make it there. And all of them, from the dancers to the quarterbacks to the gymnasts to the goaltenders, they're all one torn ACL away from it all being vapor. Even the ones who make it. Like every year, I watch the NFL draft and watch players kind of crying and hugging their mom and dad, and they're like, "I made it. Now we're set for life. I'm gonna get you a new car. I'm gonna get you a new house. This is gonna be our golden ticket." Only to watch them get hurt or not play well and be out of the league in 3 to 4 years. You can dream your wildest dream about achieving all the freedom and the stability and the independence and the peace of mind and the security that you could ever imagine. And then imagine you get it. Everything you dreamed, you get it. You lay hold of it. You've attained it. It's still super fragile. It's still like sand slipping through your fingers at any moment. You can't hold on to. Until before you know it, it's just gone. Philip and Braden told me last week about all of these people who bought into Bitcoin when it was really, really early on. And now they have billions of dollars in Bitcoin, and they lost the thumb drive that it was saved to. Or one guy who passed it on to his kids in their inheritance, but he forgot to pass on the password. And they've got this thumb drive that only has one more attempt at getting the password right before it self-destructs, locks them out. And they don't know what it is. And it's got billions of dollars on it. And it's all unusable, inaccessible. And you might hear that and you think like, oh, wow, what a shame. But the takeaway from this is that it's just so fickle, that it's fleeting and unreliable, that it's temporary and gone in a moment. The chance to get it is slim. And even if you do, it's like holding on to vapor. But the psalmist says, not so with the Lord. He surrounds his people now and forever. His forever surrounding is what makes his people like Mount Zion. His forever surrounding is what makes them stand and remain forever. I'm not asking you to throw away your career. I'm not asking you to take all your money out of savings or stop taking your kids to practice or trade your Peloton for a recliner. I'm just begging you to please be keenly aware of the fact that your money and your health and your success, even your family, are impermanent. And when you count on them and you prioritize them as if they were permanent, you're going to find heartbreak. It's not that I don't want you to find stability and security. I desperately want you to have those things. I just believe the psalmist that they're found in trusting the Lord. He's the only one that you can count on and prioritize as steadfast and immovable and permanent. Because rest assured, he unshakably surrounds his people forever, and he makes them unshakable as he does. Now, maybe you hear that and you think, that's all well and good, but what about when the situation is really bad? What about when I don't feel surrounded? How about those times when constant stability is the last thing that I'm experiencing? When I'm feeling more like constantly tossed about, more kind of unsure of how much more of this I can take. What about that? Well, friend, I have good news for you. That's exactly where this psalm is written. Verse 3, the scepter of the wicked will not remain over the land allotted to the righteous, so that the righteous will not apply their hands to injustice. The psalmist is not in a rosy situation. The scepter of the wicked is over the land of the righteous when this is being written. He isn't sitting comfortably in his stronghold, enjoying full storehouses and a plentiful harvest and naively singing about how unshakable God is. He's living under foreign oppression, ruled by a wicked king, and suffering all of the challenges and the consequences that come with that. And the threat that he sees, the threat that he's anticipating, is that this situation could lead even the righteous to turn to injustice instead. This happened all the time in Israel's history. The anxiety of the wilderness hung over the people and caused many of them to mutiny against Moses. The presence of Canaanite neighbors and Canaanite wives led many to bring Canaanite idols into their homes. There were prophets like Isaiah and Jeremiah and Hosea who had to rebuke Israel and Judah for turning to the nations around them and making alliances with people like Egypt and Assyria, because maybe that would save them from the other nations they were afraid of. Later in Israel's history, Roman occupation caused some, kind of rather than looking for the Messiah, to instead turn to zealotry. Is that a word? Zealotry? I'm not sure. To turn to guerrilla warfare and this insurgency of zealots to throw off Roman oppression. When the scepter of the wicked remains over the land, the righteous are tempted to apply their hands to injustice. Is that not also true for you? When things aren't going well, aren't you often tempted to reach out and take sin and use it for your own purposes? The budget's really tight. Maybe we just stop giving for a little while. Maybe we kind of resort to kind of tight-fistedness and lack of generosity to make ends meet. What he said about me is really unfair. It's only right if I get even. If everybody else is kind of taking what they want, I better make sure to get mine too. When things around us are unfair and unjust and the wicked are getting ahead, isn't that the time when we think, well, maybe I just kind of set this stuff aside for a moment and I just kind of look out for number one? I tried being nice, but look where that got me. I guess you're about to see a different side of me now. Like, have you ever found yourself there? When the situation is unjust, wanting to kind of borrow injustice for your own ends? Like Boromir wanting to take the ring to help his people? Listen, when I watch Lord of the Rings, when I read this book, I wish that I could identify with Aragorn the king, or Sam the faithful companion, or even Frodo the burden bearer. But instead, I have to identify with this guy. They're like, hey, I know we're not supposed to do this, but the situation seems dire enough and the enemy seems strong enough that if I could just kind of borrow a little bit of his strategy for a moment, and meanwhile play right into his hands. That's what we do with sin all the time. Honestly, this is one of the hardest things for me to do. to keep my hands acting justly when injustice seems to be prevailing. My flesh wants to just give injustice a taste of its own medicine. But that's not what the psalmist prescribes. The hope that he offers is that it won't be like this forever. The righteous don't have to apply their hands to injustice, because the Lord is going to remove the scepter of the wicked. Friends, we can wait on the Lord to do that work. And that really makes me kind of stop to ask the question, if the psalmist can be so sure of this principle while he's writing this, that the Lord's going to do that and we can wait on him, how much more so can we be sure of that on this side of the cross? Like, the gospel is our guarantee of this principle, that the Lord's going to remove the scepter of the wicked. I mentioned this last week, but when Jesus went to the cross, died, was buried, and then walked out of the tomb, he broke the back of evil right then and there. He swallowed up sin and death. We talked about this earlier in the Psalm series, but Jesus compares what he is doing right now to Satan to tying up a strong man with ropes and then plundering his house. The scepter of the ruler of this age is not going to remain over the land of the living forever. There's a day coming when Christ's final victory is going to come and his kingdom is going to prevail. His kingdom has to prevail. His kingdom is as unshakable as the mountains. It remains forever. Nothing's going to shake it. It has to win out in the end. And on that day, he's going to do good to the upright and banish the evildoers. And we can trust and wait for the Lord's justice rather than taking matters into our own hands and risking that they end up applied to injustice in the meantime. Because Christ's first victory assures his final victory. The fact that he won on the cross proves that he is going to win in the end. You can trust on and wait on the Lord's justice because his first victory assures and guarantees his final victory. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't work against injustice. You can and should stand up to evil here and now in the confidence that Christ has already disarmed the spiritual powers that are at work in the sons of disobedience. We should labor against injustice. We can labor against injustice, but we do so playing by the rules. We don't work against evil by doing evil. We work against evil by doing good. What you can't do is take a page out of their playbook. We can't use the tactics of injustice to fight against injustice. And what this also means is that the world is going to look at us as chumps right now. And that's fine. They're going to look at us like pushovers. They'll bully and they'll taunt. And then when we don't hit back, they're going to take that as a sign of weakness and they'll bully and they'll taunt more. You know how we know that? Because that's what they did to Jesus. When you don't hit back, they'll call you soft. When you don't take your chance to get even, they'll call you a fool. When you keep your hands from evil and instead pursue peace, the ones who use injustice to their own advantage are probably going to get ahead of you. And the world is going to watch as they kind of get ahead and exploit you. And the world's going to say, oh, you're an easy target, and shame you for being manipulated and continue to walk all over you. And what I'm telling you is, that's fine. They can do that. And it doesn't mean that we turn to manipulation and bullying to fight back. And here's the thing, if you do this and you encourage others to take the same approach, if you encourage others to prefer being humiliated over applying your hands to injustice, even some Christians are going to call you arrogant and say that you're exposing others to unnecessary harm and that these ideas are dangerous. But they're not the ones who surround you now and forever. Nor is the world. The world's not the one that surrounds you now and forever. Nor is your career or your family or your health or your finances. It's the Lord that surrounds his people. And it's the Lord that's going to remove the scepter of the wicked. It's his playbook that you want to follow. It's his rules that you want to live by. It's his word that you want to pattern your life after. It's the Lord who set for us the example of going like sheep before their shearers. One who had every reason to hit back, but instead applied his hands not to injustice, knowing that the Lord will remove the scepter of the wicked. It's the Lord who tells us to do good with an eye to the day when he's going to make things right. And to pray with our eyes on that same day. Listen to the psalmist's prayer as he closes. Do what is good, Lord, to the good, to those whose hearts are upright. But as for those who turn aside to crooked ways, the Lord will banish them with the evildoers. Peace be with Israel. This is a prayer for good to be done to those who trust and obey, and a prayer for justice to be done against those who turn aside to crooked ways. And you can rest assured that the Lord will do both of those things. He will. Verses 4 and 5 should give us comfort and pause. If you're trusting the Lord in obedience, but you feel like you're just spinning your wheels and you can't figure out if this is actually working or not, you should be encouraged. The Lord will do good to those whose hearts are upright. Sometimes I think we miss the comfort in these verses because we feel it would be like a lack of humility to find them comforting. But it should be an encouragement to you, Christian, that the Lord will do good to those who trust him with upright hearts. If you're anxious about your future, if you're kind of wondering what's next, maybe you're getting ready to graduate, maybe you've entertained the idea of pursuing ministry or going to the mission field, or maybe you're just kind of second-guessing everything, and you're wondering if you should maybe I just need to kind of give up on what I feel like the Lord's been calling me to and just find something easier or more stable or more secure that just has a little bit more kind of concrete answers to it. All I can tell you is this. I can remember being in those same shoes. I remember support raising for mission trips every summer when people were just asking me why I wasn't getting a paid internship or working a summer job to build up my savings more. I remember serving as a pastoral resident, working a part-time job, and being a full-time seminary student all at the same time, and getting asked why I hadn't found a paid position yet, or why I wasn't working somewhere that I could support my wife and kids and family better. And I remember those questions eating at me and tearing me up inside and making me wonder if I was doing all of it wrong. And I probably would have listened to those voices, except for two things. One, I have a very patient wife who is willing to do hard things if God asked her to. And two, God gave me a few voices that said, hey, trust me, it works out in the end. Just follow Jesus as closely as you can, even when it doesn't make sense, especially if it means denying yourself, and he'll take care of you. Voices that say what the psalmist says here, the Lord surrounds his people. And it's mostly because of what I'm reading here in the text, but it's also because of how deeply grateful and forever indebted I am to those voices that I am now telling you, you don't need to try to get ahead. You don't need to look out for yourself. Do what is good and let the Lord look out for you. He has been so incredibly kind to me. He gave me you guys. This situation, being here, being your pastor, is better than anything I could have angled for sooner. The Lord is good and kind and surrounds his people. But to those who will not follow Christ, to those who turn to their own devices, turn to the crookedness of unjust ways, this passage holds a warning. The Lord surrounds his people now and forever, but he's not going to suffer perpetrators of injustice forever. They will be banished, that the Lord might bring about this peace that the psalmist declares is coming. All of us who are in Christ should hear that, and we should respond with thankfulness that because of Christ, God counts us among the upright. And for no other reason than because of Christ. We have every reason to be banished with the evildoers. But Christ has given, one of the things he has given to us is his uprightness of heart. Christian, why should you be encouraged that the Lord will do good to those who are upright in heart? Because Christ has credited to you his uprightness in heart, which guarantees the Lord's good. Amen. His goodness and his uprightness are what the Lord sees and counts to us, which should motivate us with great humility to now continue walking in uprightness. But what that also means to those of you who have not yet followed Christ, to those who have turned aside to crooked paths, if the Lord could count us as upright, then he can count you so as well. Not because we're good, but because he is. The invitation is extended to you to turn to Christ instead of to crooked ways and to be numbered among the good rather than to be numbered among the evildoers. That invitation is there. If you're looking for peace, the certainty of God's justice means peace. If you're looking for stability, those who trust in the Lord cannot be shaken. If you're looking for security, the Lord surrounds his people. If you're looking for some kind of permanence, he does so now and forever. If you're looking for an assurance or a guarantee of this, he proved it in Christ. The wicked are going to be driven from the land sooner or later. Don't be with them when the day comes. Remember what Jesus said, like this very night, your life could be demanded of you. That's what he says to the man who builds his barns. You aren't going to earn anything by doing good. Uprightness of heart can only come by the gift of God's grace in Christ. But it's right there being held out by the open, nail-scarred hands of Jesus for you to take. If you want to know more about what it looks like to lay hold of that gift, I would love to talk to you more about this afterwards. But brother and sister, if you come in with heaviness of heart, if you're struggling or you're doubting or you're feeling tossed about and pulled in different directions, know that you can lay all of that at the feet of Christ. That trust in him, and he surrounds his people now and forever.